You hear people say things, oh, you need to meet my friend Mark. You need to meet my friend Michelle. Oh man, y'all would be a great fit together. They are evaluating that person from their vantage point, from their relationship with that person, the homie. You come over, we take shots, we go to the club, road trips in the car, we like the same things. These are all great friend characteristics. But then you meet Mark and Michelle, and that person is a disaster to be in a relationship. Not necessarily a bad person, just a bad person for you. Now, you being a good person does not, in and of itself, make you a good partner. And that can seem counterintuitive to people. And I can understand why. But it's a different thing. And let me explain. A good person is someone who's caring, considerate, trustworthy, and safe. Those are the characteristics we typically think about when we're talking about who's a good person. And those are all great qualities. But you could be a partner who embodies all of those qualities, but you're still not a good partner. You could be trustworthy, you could be safe, you could be communicative, you could be empathetic, you could be understanding, all those things. And you can still not be a good partner for the person you're with. And that's because being a good person doesn't require a lot of touch points. There's not a lot of intimacy in a person-to-person relationship that's casual. Like the dude you see at the gym. Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? Or, even like a coworker who's not a close coworker. Oh yeah, he's a good coworker. He's a good guy. Why? Because he embodies all of these characteristics. But if you have a person who you wake up to all the time or who you talk to multiple times a day, you're always interacting with, and most importantly, you have a big expectation of, it changes the formula. Relationships usually change when responsibilities and expectations starts taking the place of spontaneity and like the novelty of the togetherness. You know, when you first together and, oh, I wonder if they're going to call. I wonder if they like me. Oh, everything is new. I'm hearing it for the first time. Like you riding this high of newness. And after a while it comes down, and at some point y'all going to have a what are we conversation. And the what are we conversation is really the turning point from where your relationship goes from like this carefree, whimsical thing to something that you all are trying to build. Hopefully y'all are on the same page. But there's a seriousness that happens, and that seriousness comes with expectations and responsibilities. And that's the difference between saying, oh, you a good guy over there, and hey, you're a good boyfriend. That's the difference saying, she's a good homie. She's a good coworker. She's a good person to know, and she's a good girlfriend. Because it goes from the person perspective of what you are to the partner perspective, what you are for me, what you are in this space, how you act in our togetherness. Am I making sense? Are you seeing the difference there? And that causes a lot of frustration with folks. Now, partnership is a different type of friendship because there's a few qualities that it has to demonstrate in order to be healthy. A relationship has to have the characteristics of consistency, adaptability. This is a big one. Mutual growth and exploration. So it's a mix of the things that you're curious about with the bandwidth to actually do something about it. A relationship that's stagnant, it's not just not growing. At some point, it's kind of regressing in a way, because the point of the togetherness is to take these little steps forward bit by bit. And if your relationship isn't taking steps forward as time is moving on, well, the time surpasses you. You're not in the same spot. You end up starting to feel like you're behind. Now, all of these characteristics they sound good and they sound like things you can aspire to, but it's not all of our reality. Some of us are just not there yet. We're just not in a place in our, I'm about to sound real therapist-y. I hate this term, but we're not in this place in our growth journeys. We got to find a different word. I don't like that one. But we're not in this place in our growth journeys where we can give that to anybody, or where we've mastered or cultivated those skills. And then sometimes we're not in a relationship with somebody who's had enough time to demonstrate any of that. They're not that person yet. They are not in their final form. Doesn't stop us from loving them. Doesn't stop us from wanting to pursue something with them. But that's just not who they are right now. Or that's just not who we are. So in this episode, I don't want to focus on the person being good or bad. These are just qualities. It's not a statement of who anybody is. But we somehow, because we love relationships, and I think we are biologically and physiologically wired for companionship in that way to some extent. God damn, y'all. I feel like we blow past the part where we're honest about how difficult relationships are. And then sometimes it's not because one person is terrible or the other person is horrible. It's because the relationship is very complicated and you all are too nuanced for those puzzle pieces to fit together the way you would like. And it causes friction, and it causes tension, and it causes a rupture at some point. It also causes tension, and there is this tension that exists between, like I said, being a good person and a good partner, because we all know somebody who they seem like a good person, on the surface. When you go to the cookout, you talk to them, they got good conversation, they got good energy, they're a delight to be around. You don't have anything overtly negative to say about them. Man, they cool. Kier is cool. I like him. There is another part of that. It's another part of that beyond what you see on the surface. Kier can be as good and as genuine and as hardworking of a person as you ever met. But that doesn't mean that he has not hurt people. Doesn't mean that he has not hurt people in romantic relationships. And of course, I think we got to say this, not in a physical way. We're not talking about abuse. We're talking about hurt feelings. We're talking about not being mature enough to meet the moment as it's requested. We're talking about leaving a lot of conversations on the table. We're talking about ignoring things that are clearly red flags. Talking about running red lights in your relationship. I can be that person behind the scenes and still present and still be a good, hardworking, trustworthy person. They're two completely different things. Now, on social media, I think we do a really good job of framing people that hurt people as being singularly malicious. And that is true. Sometimes people hurt people because they're malicious. They want to hurt people. They want to make you feel as bad as they feel. Or they want you to feel low because they're more comfortable when you're in that space. They feel like they have more control over you or over the situation. But sometimes it's not maliciousness. And this is a hard message to get across because it makes it seem like you're letting people who don't do the right thing off the hook. But just bear with me for a second. Sometimes it's ignorance. Sometimes it's a lack of knowing. Sometimes it's a lack of understanding. But just because you're not fully aware of what your actions are doing to the people around you doesn't make them any less malicious, and it doesn't make them hurt any less. You hear people say things, oh, you need to meet my friend Mark. You need to meet my friend Michelle. Oh man, y'all will be a great fit together. They are evaluating that person from their vantage point, from their relationship with that person, the homie. You come over, we take shots, we go to the club, we do road trips in the car. We like the same things. These are all great friend characteristics. But then you meet Mark and Michelle, and that person is a disaster to be in a relationship. Not necessarily a bad person, just a bad person for you. That's because what makes a good friend for me can make a terrible partner for someone else. Those credits don't transfer. It's not an automatic thing. So today, I want you to let's walk away from shame and guilt a little bit. Let's walk away from blaming. I know our minds have all been kind of affected or dented a little bit because of these ridiculous gender wars on the internet, but that's not what this is. Let's do a methodical, an intelligent, and a detailed breakdown of relationships as we see them, and let's figure this thing out together. Yeah? All right, let's do it. Let's grow. So what does it mean to be in a good relationship? I tell you what it doesn't mean. To be in a good relationship doesn't always mean that you're in a successful relationship. Kier, what do you mean? How's something going to be good if it's not successful? Well, define success. Some people walk into romantic relationships believing because they like this person, success means being married to this person because that is like the final stage of relationship success as we know it. But that's not always true. Not every relationship is designed to meet that goal. Some relationships are successful and they were only 2 years old because the goal of that relationship wasn't really marriage. It was for you all to spend time together, learn from one another, and get your needs met in that time period. Maybe the needs that you had that you all met so beautifully, you both grew out of them. Or maybe one person grew out of having that need met and they required something else that the other partner wasn't designed to give. They weren't in that place in their life, or maybe their mind just doesn't work that way. I want you to just take a moment and think about what do you deem a successful relationship? All relationships are not meant to go the distance. They're just not. But just because it didn't go to where you expected it to, perhaps where you wanted it to, or maybe where society tells you it should have gone, that doesn't mean it was a failure. That doesn't mean that relationship was a failure. It just means that it ran its course. I'll even venture to say, sometimes a successful relationship is the one that ends before y'all move in together. Because y'all moving in together would have been a disaster. And no matter how much you love somebody, you can't outrun the foundational issues in your relationship. People come into therapy sometimes and they have these structural issues in their relationship. The person who is a order and neatness is safety kind of person, they fall in love with an organized chaos is my jam kind of person. And they love each other very much, but they think that that love is enough to make those two pieces meet. Or they expect the other person to be different, have a different orientation once the long-term partnership of it all kicks in, and it doesn't happen. They expect that person to be someone that they were never designed to be and that they were never going to be for anyone. And now resentment kicks in and time has gone by, and it's more than just disappointment. It's anger, it's grief, it's bitterness, all these things wrapped up into one. But you can avoid all that if you realize, like, hey, this relationship isn't working. Perhaps we shouldn't move in together. The scary part is when people just hit the pedal, speed past that, and say, hey, we're going to make this thing work regardless. I do not recommend that. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well more often than not. So what are the qualities of a good partner in a good relationship? I've identified some, and here's how I see it. Show up consistently. And showing up consistently doesn't mean showing up perfectly. It means doing the thing that you said you were going to do. And if you can't do the thing you said you were going to do, letting the other person know. And this is really a communication. It's a maturation communication thing. It's something that you have to practice, something you have to be aware that you need to do. But I learned from my wife early on. She said, hey, if you can't show up, just call me and let me know that you can't show up. I don't want to have the expectation of waiting on you. It's like, okay, but it's good to know that because that's not everybody's definition of consistency. So it's good to talk to your partner and know what they mean when they say they want consistency. But that's a great first quality that I think of. Show up consistently every single time. Just be consistent. That's where emotional safety comes from. Another one is the exchange, when you can give and receive affection. You can give and receive feedback. You can give and receive accountability. Not just tell somebody what they're doing wrong, but you can give, and the two-way street is necessary. One of the more high-level characteristics I've noticed is when you can be really interested in your partner flourishing. Outside of you, just them flourishing is something that you not only want, but it's something that gives you a positive feeling. When they do good, it makes you feel good. When they accomplish a goal, when they fulfill a dream, when they do what they said they were going to do, when they're starting to grow, when they're starting to realize things about themselves, when they get better opportunities, when they're making more money, when they're moving on career-wise, they're flourishing, and you genuinely, not putting on a face, not performing it, but you're genuinely excited for them, or you're genuinely happy for them, because not everybody's excited. It's the happiness is the internal feeling, and excitedness is just like an external representation. You ain't got to be jumping on furniture like Tom Cruise in an Oprah interview, but to be happy for them, that's such a great characteristic to grow into. And it's great because it's about them as a human being outside of you, and it's not just about your own comfort. One of my favorite characteristics I see in couples that come in for counseling when they're being good partners is that they are fighting for the goal of resolution. When they are going back and forth, when they're having a disagreement, when there's an issue between them, there's not a lot of attacking of each other. They're not attacking each other, they're attacking the issue. And on a more advanced scale, they're not all the way angry at each other. They realize that they're angry at the issue, and the person is a conduit to the issue. It's not you, but you're not helping. But it's the problem. The problem is my problem. The person is not my problem. The problem is my problem. That's always something that I see in therapy that gives me real hope that a couple has the chances to overcome whatever they're going through in the moment. Like it gives them a really good shot. And if I had to say one more, I think a good characteristic is when you can, how do I say this? You can hold your own emotional weight without collapsing into shame and guilt. You know, people who, like, when they get called out for something, or when they feel bad about something, they kind of just turn into a pool of self-deprecation. Oh, I'm so stupid. I can never get it right. Like, there are two problems with that. The biggest problem is that it takes the focus away from the issue and it puts it back on the person, because now they need to be comforted and they need to be consoled when they feel bad about something that they did. And it's really, it really inhibits growth, because people will stop trying to reason and talk to people when they feel like you're going to feel so bad about your part of it that you're never going to actually get back to the real issue. And it happens a lot with couples. But when you can really take all the emotional weight you carry and it's on your shoulders and it's heavy, man. It's heavy, but you don't take that as an opportunity to redirect the conversation back to you. You could still make this a partnership where there's a equal exchange of thoughts and ideas and emotions and all that. It's not just centered around you. The cloud is not just raining over your head. Everybody's struggles and everybody's issues have a chance to be seen. Man, that's always promising. But on the other side of these good characteristics are characteristics that are not as healthy, and they are not indicative of a relationship that I think makes someone a good partner. So let's talk about those real quick too. One is chronic selfishness. And I kind of just talked about that. When you become the emotional vacuum and no one else in a relationship can feel, or no one else in a relationship could be as tired as you are. If you have a partner says, "Oh, I'm tired," and your response is tired, you don't know tired. I've been tired. I've done this. Must be nice to sit down on the couch all day. Must be nice to sit and look at your phone and watch Netflix all day. And to be fair, I've seen men do this to women, and I've seen women do this to men in equal value. It happens all the time. There's a stay-at-home mom. Sometimes, all she does is watch Netflix all day. How hard can it be to take care of a kid? What? What? You're tripping. Or on the other side, it could be a woman who's in a relationship with a man, and let's say she just had a baby and he's taking a nap on the couch. She's like, "Tuh. Must be nice to take a nap on the couch. You're so lazy. You could never do what I do." And it's like, I can understand why that would frustrate you, but that person deserves to be tired too. It's not a struggle Olympics in your relationship, and when it becomes one, nobody wins the gold medal. All right, that's the Olympics where everybody is a loser. Nobody wins that.